was diving when a powerful underwater current swept him out to sea, separating him from his boat.
Oh my God, yes! 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 Oh my God, yes!
Barry, how are you?
Watch that nail. It's gonna pull
Yeah, I see it over there. How are you?
Doing great.
How was the dive?
Fantastic.
Yeah?
Got a guy in back home.
That's beautiful.
Good to see you, man.
Amy, how are you?
Barry Shively. You guys recognize him from a lot of my videos when I was getting certified in ANDP and Trimix and doing all the tech diving stuff. And in a lot of my videos, I told you guys how amazing Barry is as an instructor, a diver, and just an overall mentor. And today we're talking about what happened during the Emerald Coast Open when we ended up having a diver going missing. We're sitting here with Barry now, so we can
Hear the rest of
hear the whole story.
So, like you said, this was dive number 5 for me. So, bounce diving, shooting lionfish. I was the first diver of the day, and it was my 5th dive, moving half a mile in between dive spots. And I had 1100 PSI in a HP 100. And for me, that's probably at the depth we were at, like about 65-ish feet, probably 30 minutes of bottom time. I got down to a small pyramid and there was one lionfish. That was probably the nail in the coffin, or started the problems. Because they expected 20, 30 minutes of shooting, and my total bottom time, including my safety stop, was 7 minutes.
Wow. That's fast.
It's fast. Now I usually descend super fast. I'm at 200 feet per minute, usually. And shooting lionfish is probably that or close to it. There was a really bad current. I'm sure you guys had it as well. It turns out from the drift rate from the Coast Guard that the calculated drift was between 100 and 120 feet per minute, which for the Gulf of Mexico is moving pretty good. From 25 feet all the way to the bottom on all the dives that we had, 0 current. I could sit above chicken coop, pyramid, whatever we were diving, and look down and see it clearly, and that I wasn't moving. But as soon as I moved to 23, 22 feet, the pyramid, whatever, just disappeared quickly. Both because the visibility wasn't that great in the top of the water column, and really fast currents. I came up behind the boat 7 minutes after the dive. I did a 2.5 minute safety stop. Close my eyes, relax, just off gas. And dolphins showed up. Big pot of dolphins, probably 15, including a newly birthed calf. So it was, I'm not a big fan of dolphins. They're not my go-to animal. Google dolphin rape.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
Real
even
thing?
catchy songs. It's a real thing.
There's another story behind that.
Oh, for sure. 3 species on the planet raped for fun. Some form of ape, humans, and dolphins. So,
There were no apes in the water.
There were no apes in the water. So I'm not a big fan of them. They're really smart. They're very methodical. They're an interesting animal. So, but I'm usually guarded when they're in the water. I would prefer sharks every day over dolphins. So I watched the dolphins for a couple of minutes. I was trying to stay down around 25 feet, 30 feet max. Do my quick safety stop and surfaced, and the current grabbed me. And within 3 or 4 minutes, the boat was not in yelling distance anymore. I had a whistle. I took off my glove, was using my fingers to whistle, yelling, and they never heard me, but not a word. 3 or 4 minutes in to the drift, the boat moved back to the dive site. They were looking for bubbles and had drifted off the dive site, so they were motoring back to the dive location, which opened the gap even further between us. It happened really fast. I took out my first SMB, a bright orange 4-foot SMB, smaller because when I spearfish, I don't usually need it. So I like the nice compact size of a smaller SMB.
Right.
So I pulled the 4-foot out, blew it up, and had it in above my head, probably less than 4 minutes into the on the surface. After 10 minutes, I pulled out my second one. I have a 3-foot yellow SMB. It's my signaling SMB that I use if we have an emergency while we're tech diving, need support from the surface group, or in this case, when we're lionfish hunting, if we get down on top of a pyramid and it looks like I don't have enough gas to clean all the lionfish off, then we'll shoot the small SMB, tie it off to the reef, and somebody can follow the SMB right back down and continue off where I left off. So it's just a signal SMB. But in this case, it was another form of communication or visual indication that I was adrift. The dive boat moved to the dive site, looked for me, expecting me up in 30-ish minutes. And after 45 minutes, they had moved over, almost over the horizon. They were just a speck in the distance. I then took my 2 SMBs and lashed them together with the finger spool because I didn't need to use them to shoot. So I tied everything together. So I would end up with 8 feet or 7 feet of SMB tied together, and I could hold 7 feet above my head. Then I tied that to the pole spear, so I could hold the pole spear and 2 SMBs up above my head. Ultimately, it was forming a figure 7 rather than a straight line because the small SMB at the top would just fall over after a while. I'd reinflate it, get it tight, and it would stand up nice and tall, but then after about 10 minutes, it would just flip over to the number 7 again. What was interesting about the whole thing is the Dolphins stayed with me during that whole first hour and a half of drift. The pod would circle me. The mother was pushing the calf super close to the point it was from you to me. I could reach out and touch it, but I suspected that would be a bad decision on my part to reach out and try to touch a baby that had just been birthed.
Right.
But the mother had it really close. There was a big male on the outside, and that's the one that I really wanted to get close to. We've all watched Flipper, right?
Yep.
What happens when you're stranded at sea? Flipper comes and gets you and takes you either to shore or back to the boat.
Yep.
So I was trying everything I could think of to get that big dolphin close enough where I could maybe grab a hold of his dorsal fin. I was yelling underwater. I'd put my face in the water and yell, boat, hey, help. Anything I thought I could. I used Jedi powers.
Which is not crazy.
Well, it's not crazy. Hey, they're smart, right? And we all know they've been through government testing. Right, so they know ESP, so I was concentrating, trying to get them to pull me back to the boat. Now, they would circle me for 5 minutes really fast and looking at me real hard. I could hear them chattering and whistling. And what got crazy really quickly, probably 5 or 10 minutes into the drift, is they would spy hop all the way back to the boat. Normally, the dolphins will stay in the water and they just come up to breathe and then come back down. Right. It uses a lot of energy to jump out of the water to see where they're going. But the whole pod, not in unison, but there's 15, 20 dolphins, and they were just looking for the boat in the distance. And they would swim straight back to the boat. I could take compass bearing and look. I was drifting straight east. The boat was just to my west on the horizon, but I could watch the dolphins go back to the boat. They would be gone for a couple, 5 minutes, and then they would be back. The same ones. There was a couple spotted, and mainly gray dolphins, but a couple spotted, and that calf. I knew the calf from the minute I saw it. I was like, they're back. They would circle me for 5 minutes, and then they would spy hop right back to the boat. Every time they would come back, I would be yelling at them, help me. Boat, anything I could think of. I was closing my eyes and holding my hand out, like, just put your dorsal fin right in that. Nothing.
And they probably made it back to the boat, and the guys on the boat were like, get out of here, dolphins.
Yeah.
We're looking for somebody.
All right. I mean, did you guys saw them? I mean, the dolphins kept going back, and they kept saying, but, there was an effort being made.
Just wasn't connecting.
It's just we couldn't connect the dots.
Yep.
I knew. The dolphins maybe knew, but the boat didn't. So
they would spy hop over, but they would disappear.
Coming straight back to me, probably.
Yeah, but they would dive down, and then
You just wouldn't see
we couldn't see where they went from.
Yeah, they didn't spy hop back to me, just going to the boat. Chip, 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 chip. And then all of a sudden they would be back, like, hey, they're back. And they for an hour and 15 minutes, continuously. Here for 5 minutes, gone for 5 minutes. Back for 5 minutes, gone for 5 minutes. It was crazy. I knew that they knew I was in trouble, but I didn't know how to help them help me solve it.
Right.
Like there was a gap, but it was crazy.
That's insane.
For that reason alone, now I hate dolphins even more.
Yeah.
Dang it, dolphins! Come on, man, help a brother out.
That's right.
I had 2 zookeepers. I had the 2 SMBs, lashed together. I still had 2 zookeepers. I had 1 lionfish in one of them. I had taken one of my gloves off and stuffed it in one of the zookeepers. From holding all this up, in an hour and a half, my hand was already, I could feel it getting hot from the sun. It was getting sunburnt. So I wanted to get that glove back. But more importantly, now I had made the decision I was going to swim for shore. It was 11 miles to Navarre Beach. And I didn't want to be the guy that did nothing.
Right.
And just float in the Gulf of Mexico hoping for the best. So I decided after 1 hour to self-rescue. And my wife makes me watch all these videos and movies of bear attacks and what would you do if, and all the ones that end up really badly is they just decide to stay there and do nothing. Right. So I decided at 1 hour in, if nothing else, I'm going to be closer to the beach. So I started swimming. I could tell right away that the zookeepers that I was carrying were a lot of resistance. I could feel them swinging every time I kicked. So after about 2 hours, I ditched the first one. It was a small one. It's about 1.5 feet long, but the bottom roll unscrews and extends out with some turtle skin fabric. So it becomes about a 4 or 5 foot one. That one I didn't have any problems ditching. It went easily away, right to the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. The second one had the lionfish in it and my glove, and I was hesitant to reach my hand in to the zookeeper to get my glove, knowing that there was a fairly big lionfish in it. So I took the funnel out. They all have like a Chinese finger trap in them, the funnel. I took the cap off, tossed it, and I took the plastic orange funnel and I put it on top of the SMBs to try to get a little, it's bright orange, an older bright orange one. I thought, it's bright, it's colorful, and can't hurt to have it up there. So I put it at the top so it would be more orange visibility. And I could look in and see my glove next to the lionfish, but I was still really worried about putting my hand in there to grab it. Excuse me. So I tied off my finger spool to it, lowered it down about 3 foot, because, man, I figured if that lionfish comes out of there and pokes me, it's going to be bad. So I lowered my finger spool down about 10 feet and I was just swaying it back and forth trying to get my glove and the lionfish to come out of the tube. And after a few minutes, it finally did, and I just swam down. I got my glove, and the lionfish just slowly tumbled to the bottom. I had the Zookeeper in my hand. The original manufacturer of Zookeeper, Ollie, he had signed that. He and I were very close during a lot of the original lionfish tournaments, and he had signed it. And when I saw his signature, I got to tell you, I had a lot of problems letting that second Zookeeper go. Yep. And I'm embarrassed to say, for 20 or 30 minutes, I held that Zookeeper on my chest as I was swimming for shore because I didn't want to drop it. Right. It was just one of those stupid things, It's like, it's a thing, It's a real thing.
I mean, it's in stressful situations, like you hold on to stuff that you're familiar with. Like law enforcement goes through it all the time. And there's been so many studies of like FBI agents that will get in shootouts, and they like when they go to check them, they have their empty shell casings in their pockets because on the range they're trained to shoot and bend down and pick up your shell casings. So that's what they would do.
It was about 20, 30 minutes after that, probably 2.5 hours into the ordeal, I finally ditched that second Zookeeper. The sun was low on the horizon, being 8:30, 9:30, so I could use the sun to guide me to shore. But as the day grew longer and longer and that sun moved straight above me, it became super hard to use the sun to navigate. I have a Shearwater Perdix dive computer and it's got a compass on it. So I would flip it on, look, I could see the surface interval, how long I've been adrift, and look at the bearing, make sure that it's okay. But I knew if this self-rescue moved into nighttime, if I moved further down the beach where there might not be any lights or visible lights, I was going to need that computer to stay fresh. So I would turn it on for a couple of seconds and turn it right back off. I kept looking behind me for the beach, and that caused my wetsuit to start cutting into my neck from the salt drying on the wetsuit, then getting wet, and me turning my head, the top of the wetsuit just cut my neck open or made it raw. And I could tell it was painful about 2.5 hours in. And then the sun became relentless. There was not like a cloud in the sky at noon. And I was getting burnt bad. I left my hood on. I left my mask on. I kept my wetsuit zipped up. I was comfortable. I was warm. Didn't have any thoughts of panic or that I wasn't going to make it. All I could think was I just got to keep my head down and keep on swimming. Keep swimming. And I was singing songs, at first to myself, then out loud, stuff that had a good rhythm. Even probably did some old marching chants from the old Navy days. Yep. Just stuff to motivate me to keep moving and at a good pace. Not too fast, not too slow, just forward momentum. 3 hours in, I got the first bump. Still kept my tank on for a long time. I committed to myself that I was going to keep the tank till the 6th hour. So I was still keeping the tank. I thought in the back of my mind that I may need it because I still had like 800 PSI. And I was worried maybe if surf got tougher in the evening or as I got closer to shore, maybe surf break, I might have a problem if I didn't have a tank or scuba to be able to get through the surf zone. But I kept it for a long time, probably a lot longer than I should have. But about 3 hours in, I got my first bump. And I wasn't sure if it was the Dolphins that were back initially or if it was the tax man coming to collect some dues. I felt something tap really hard and aggressively on my inner thigh, and I immediately looked in the water and didn't see anything. And to me, having been in spearfishing and in the Gulf of America a lot spearfishing, those are the ones that worry me, the bumps that disappear really quick because that means it's a small, fast shark. About 5 minutes later, after I kind of calmed my breathing, I was like, okay, if there's something there, you got to be calm. You got to slow your breathing, keep your heart rhythm down, and keep swimming, but slow it down a little bit. Not panic swim, slow. I felt another tap on my right butt cheek. Again, I looked in the water, didn't see a thing. Decided just keep swimming. Felt another pretty good one on the inside of my right knee, then my left knee almost immediately. And again, I was like, now I gotta know.
Right.
So I rolled over on my stomach and just was watching. I was like, something's going on. And for like 4 or 5 minutes, nothing. And I was like, okay, it's back to swimming. And like 3 or 4 minutes later, the culprit finally showed himself. It was a 3-foot remora.
Dang remoras.
Dang remoras, I tell you.
Trying to hitch a ride.
Shark suckers, for those unknowing. If you ever watched a shark video, you've seen them. They're the little fish that attach themselves to the bottom of the shark, just an opportunistic feeder, and they're along for a free ride. They have a tennis shoe imprint on the top of their head, which allows them to suck up to things. So he was attaching himself to my tank, then he would get on my thigh, then my hip, and then he was like trying to get on my thigh while I was swimming. So,
which is still kind of scary because remoras are usually sharks.
Right. And I was like,
I always think about when I
hopefully, where's your buddy at? Yep. So hopefully he's not around. So I swam for a while with the remora, and as he kind of worked his way up my stomach, I finally reached down and grabbed his tail and gave him a good shake. And that was enough for him to say, okay, I'm done playing with you, and swam off. And thank God, because I was getting tired of the little bumps in the night. When that happens the first, second, or time, the shark music starts playing. It's the Jaws theme plays in your back of your mind, like, uh-oh, here we go. So 3 hours in, or 2.5 hours in, maybe 3 hours, the Coast Guard helicopter finally showed. It was a long time before I saw the first helicopter. Now, I suspected that it was probably going to be an hour to maybe an hour and a half before the boat that I was diving from called for help. Then it would probably be at least another hour for them to come from, I think they come from New Orleans now. So it's a long way. They have to leave New Orleans, come to either Mobile or Pensacola, refuel, and then get on station. So they went immediately to the place that I had been dropped. I could tell that they were out over a spot, and I could see the tail rotor, then the front, then the tail rotor, then the front. I watched the helicopter, and then it started a search pattern. The initial search pattern was from the dive location to the beach, back to the dive location, back to the beach, and they were working closer to me as they came down. They did about 4 there and backs from the beach out offshore, and then they stopped. And then they ran, I have to look, but I think they ran down the beach and then went back. It was a little discerning, and they were way away from me initially. Then they went back to the dive spot, and they formed like an L pattern parallel to the beach, working that's like the current line, where I was way north now of the current line. So they worked back and forth, and I thought if they could just go maybe like another 10 back and forth, they would get on top of me. They did like 4 or 5, then peeled off, and it looked to me like they went to Hurlburt Field, which is a military installation in Mariaster area. So I think they probably went to refuel, but I can't say. They disappeared for probably 45 minutes or to an hour, and then came straight back down the beach, way away from me. Then started again on the same original search pattern from the beach to the dive site, and then back and forth. They made a total of 3 passes close to me. One of them maybe 150 feet away, so really close. But I was on the port side of the helicopter, and that's the side that does not have the open door. Never saw me. They did another pass, similar, a little bit further away, maybe 200 feet, and again, the open door side was away from me. Then later, they made one pass I was on the starboard side, and I could see the big open door with somebody sitting in it, but they were probably a quarter to a half mile away. And I thought, well, if they didn't see me from 150 or 200 feet away, they're not going to see me from that far away. So, and they never did. There was a private plane that came out around 3.5 hours in. They were working up and down the beach. Michael Norberg, thank you for taking the time out and going up there and working on the search. Several other private pilots were refueling, dusting the wings off, getting ready to head out when they got the word that I'd been picked up. But thank you to those guys as well. I saw 2 boats fairly close by, one on the east side of me. That was super exciting because I figured they were going to be on the east side and working their way west, close to me. They were going to shore, then way off, then to shore, then way off. I lost them for a hot minute, so I didn't see them for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden they'd be back again. They seemed to be working closer and closer. I saw one sport fisher coming down the beach. I thought for sure that they were cobia fishing. You know, there was a whole bunch of people sitting up in a tower looking around, and it seemed to me they were probably cobia fishing. They were close-ish, but never saw me. Turns out that was Brian Belzer and some of my friends from that group. They were out looking closer to shore, which was perfect, exactly what we needed. About 4 hours in, I had gotten really close to Navarre Beach. I could now see the balconies. I could see window details. I could hear kids screaming on the beach. Voices carry a long way on the water, and I could hear just faint screaming. And I was like, man, I'm getting close. I figured I had made it halfway-ish, and gave me renewed energy. And when that happened, like at hour 5, is when I decided to dump the tank so I could get on top of my wing and my BC and kick with my face more in the water. When I did that, though, I would have to lower the SMB, so I'd only do it when nobody was around. That way I could fold the SMBs in half, have them more like pool noodles, and swim much harder than I think I was before. Hour 6, 5 hours and 58 minutes, a boat was coming straight at me, and I had been disappointed so many times before. I was trying not to get excited by it, but I got the SMBs, got them standing up, was waving them back and forth, and they saw me.
Oh my God, yes! 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 Oh my God, yes! Woo! Barry! Fuck! Oh my God, Barry! Oh!
Call his wife.
I am right now.
Oh my God, Barry! We just came all the way from Pensacola.
It was Ryan Hawks, Cammie Hawks, River Hawks, their daughter, and Clay Baggett, I think is his last name. I'm sorry if I messed that up. Smaller boat, out there looking. Ryan Hawks is an ER physician, I think in Mobile. Trauma surgeon. Good guy to find you, especially if you've been out in the water all day. That's the guy you want.
100%.
He's also a private pilot, so he understands current, drift, wind. So he went out to where I was last seen. They took some smart bearings, some readings, figured out what the current was doing. Said Barry's going to be swimming if we know Barry. Right. So they took that into account, and they drove the boat straight to me. I mean, I saw him coming from a long way, and honestly, I was thinking at one point, I might have to move out of the way. They might run me over. So just incredible relief, joy. I was crying when I got up there onto the boat. I could barely walk because I'd been swimming for 6 hours. It doesn't look like it now, but I used to do marathons, up until I was 22. So I knew what pain in my legs was and how to overcome it. And man, I tell you, that was painful to work through the cramps, the pain of swimming. But I never gave up hope, and it just took one boat to make the right decision and drove straight to me. We all hugged. They were crying. I was crying. Got some water in me. They called, told the Coast Guard I'd been found. Everybody started showing up. Fish and Wildlife was nearby. The Coast Guard, they showed up. Other friends that were out spearfishing that stopped fishing and just went out and searched. There was suddenly 5 or 6 boats all around, including the boat that I had dove from. They showed up, put all my gear back on, rolled off the boat. They come over and said, hey, don't forget you don't have a tank. So when you roll off the boat, don't breathe off the regulator.
Yep.
I rolled off the boat, swam over, hugged the guys that had been searching for me for 6 hours. They never gave up hope that I was on the surface and I'd be found. Got on the boat, called my wife, who was really distraught, and a whole bunch of friends.
Yeah.
I was humbled by the number of prayers, well wishes, text messages, Facebook Messenger, phone call, missed phone calls, 800-ish when I opened my phone to call my wife. I was like, holy smokes, I've never seen more than 10. And now I have 800.
Right.
The whole ride in, I was just texting people, letting them know I'm okay. Just kind of made like a blanket statement, hey, I'm good.
Which
little
is crazy
sunburn.
that you have that much energy and dexterity in your fingers after being in the water for 6 hours and swimming.
I just wrote like one long post to a close friend, and then I was just copy paste, like 100 to 300 times. And by the time we got back to the dock, even though I'd probably responded to 300 text messages, those suddenly were 300 more, 400 more people replying back. Oh my God, we're so happy. Our prayers have been answered. I was overwhelmed. It was just humbling. My family flew in the next day. They didn't expect a great outcome. So my wife had told several of my family members, come hither. And they did. They jumped on planes, flew down here to help support my wife through a very traumatic ordeal.
Right.
Lots of friends. I can't thank the Coast Guard, FWC, all the people that gave up their Lionfish tournament, spent tons of money to go drive patterns in the ocean to look for me. I can't thank those people enough. I owe them a huge debt of gratitude. You just don't know how many friends you have and the quality of those friends until something like this happens.
Yep.
One of my former students, Andrew Bush, thank you, Andrew. He sent me a Garmin In-Reach. He ordered one as soon as he heard my voice on the phone.
Very nice.
So I got that today so did several other people on the boat that I was diving off of. He sent those to them as well. I've done very little research on it, but I know my wife said I'm not going to be diving anymore unless I'm diving with a way to communicate to the Coast Guard or to her or the boat, whatever. Right. So the Garmin In-Reach is one of several options. I have one now sitting here, and although I don't have the dive case, and I dove today without it. It was on the boat, but not on me. It will be going forward as soon as I get that dive case.
A lot safer diver today, though, with a line and
for sure.
Other divers in the water.
Yeah. It was a very safe dive today. A whole different scenario than lionfish hunting in high current with hot drops. So, yeah, a lot different diving.
That's amazing. It's incredible. Like, just to think about being in the water for 30 minutes and not have a boat coming for you is
5 hours and 58 minutes was my surface interval.
Wow.
From the time that I surfaced from my 5th dive to the time that I stepped onto the back of the boat of Ryan Hawk and his family and Clay Baggett. God, I hope that's Baggett, back on their boat. Long time.
Yep.
Never had any fear, never, except for the remora showed up that gave me a little bit of a hesitation, but I never doubted that I wasn't going to make it.
Was that the first time that you thought about sharks? Was when the remora showed up?
Yeah, I thought I wasn't going to be too excited about getting into the beach zone at night if it went into the evening or the dusk. Those guys get out there and fish and catch everything from tiger sharks to hammerheads to great white sightings along the beach. So I wasn't super excited about trying to get through the surf zone and that first and second sandbar where the sharks usually patrol, at dusk or at night. So I was like, that would be when it would be really good to have that scuba tank, but that was a lot of drag. Yeah, being on the surface is a little bit, it gave me a little bit of trepidation, but yeah, long day on the water. No worse for the wear, a little bit of sunburn. I still got a little bit of stripes here, like a 5 o'clock shadow look from this sunburn. It just peeled off in sheets relatively quickly. Just from where my mask stopped to my hood began, like Joker smile kind of thing. Other than that, and the neck abrasion, which I still have a little bit of a burn there today.
Yeah, on Sunday during the weigh-in stuff, like that, literally like somebody had hung you.
I know.
You had a nasty rope burn around your neck.
It looked like a bad rope burn. It was tough, and even today it still hurts a little bit, but just one day at a time. It's a good reminder, to do smarter things.
Right.
Everybody has got lessons to learn here, me included. I'm going to start diving with the Garmin In-Reach and make that part of my dive plan, whether it be on a boat that I don't know anybody. If I'm getting off the boat, I'll have it. And if we're bounce diving, I'll hand it to the next guy and he can dive with it. And I don't think it doesn't look that hard to operate. I got to register it and get all signed up and everything, but it's a good lesson. I wish to hell I had it when I was drifting for 6 hours. I was like, man, if I could just press a button and say, here I am. Mm-hmm. Come here. When you see that helicopter, I was like, just a little bit closer.
It's just one of those things, though, like, whatever's going to happen to you. Like, I used to solo hunt in the mountains of Montana, and my dad would tell me all the time, like, don't solo hunt, and you better have a way to communicate with rescue teams, and I'm like, it ain't going to happen to me. And I never got a Garmin In-Reach. They were a thing back then, and I never did it. And even diving, I was like, that's never going to happen to me. But now that I know somebody personally that it happened to, it's definitely eye-opening.
I am really close to 4,000 dives as of today. I'm within 100 either way. Normally in the past, I'd kept track of the number of dives I had. I tried to make the big dives, the 2,000, the 2,500, the 3,000, best places to go. Like, hey, for 3,000, let's go to Mexico. For 2,500, let's go here.
Right.
This one I wanted to be a surprise, so I haven't been watching for like the last 6 months. I always download my dives, keep track of it, log everything. But I haven't been watching for a while because I wanted this one to be a surprise. Like, what did you do that was this monumental dive? And I was telling Matt that the other day, and Matt said, wouldn't it be crazy if 4,000 was a 6-hour drift in the Gulf of America? Well, you never know. Yeah. I mean, I still haven't figured it out because I know I'm 100 on either side. I could be 100, 4,100, or I could be 3,900. I don't know. I'm close. So I need to wait like another 100 dives, which probably take me a couple of months to get there before I go look to see where it was at.
Right. That'd be something.
It'll be another Barry story.
That's right. Yeah. It'd be perfect.
It'll be perfect.
Wow. So you're talking about diving today, literally one day over a week from being lost at sea, and you're already back in the water.
Interestingly, to my wife's amiss, when I got picked up got back onto the boat that I had left from. I told the guys, because they were messed up. I could see it in their face.
Right.
I was okay, except for being a little bit sunburnt. You get kicked off the horse, what do? Get back on. So I told those guys, let's go diving. Let's go shoot some more lionfish. We got 4 or 5 hours. Let's go. So we did one drop. One of the guys, he was probably the most shook up. He was on deck. We put him in the water. He went down and shot one lionfish. There could have been 200. There could have been one. We don't know. So he come back to the boat. He got back on. We were getting ready for the next drop. I wanted to just let them know, hey, I'm okay. Let's keep going. Right. We're here to have fun. Let's go have fun. And let me talk through some things with them, build their confidence back up, let them know, get back to telling stories, having fun. Mm-hmm. The boat owner called and said, get my effing boat back to the dock right now. You guys are done.
Yeah.
So that put an end on the dive operations, and we headed back to the dock. But I still talked, told stories. And I think it's the best part of learning is horrible, difficult days on the water.
Right.
Right. So I think most people, they learn the most. This was a hard lesson to learn for everybody, but it's one that you got to work through. You got to own it. You got to show up, and you got to keep diving. Right? That's how we learn.
100%. I know I've talked about that in a lot of my videos too, and a lot of the training videos is that if you're not looking back at your dive and figuring out even if it was the best dive you ever had, there's probably something in there that you can find something that you didn't do right.
Absolutely. I am no stranger to difficult dives. Today was a mess. That was a mess. Even at 4,000 dives, and just a little couple changes in your kit, and it turned what was a fantastic, fun dive, putting a former Oriskany sailor back on his home. It was a mess for me. Trim was horrible. Too much weight, not enough wing, no dry suit, in a wetsuit. It was just so many things, and I wanted to do some exploration on the Oriskany, because I was out there to have fun and put a former sailor back on the Oriskany, do a little bit of exploration. But I had to, as soon as we got the Oriskany sailor down there, I turned my dive buddy and said, I'm done. Mentally, I was just baked. It happens to all of us, we just have bad days. And that's what the drift was for everybody. It was just a bad day in the water, and you got to pick it up, you fix it for the next time, and keep moving forward, Little things, little tweaks.
100%. So you talked about bounce diving. What is bounce diving for the non-divers and the non-lionfish hunters?
Good question. So usually with a bounce dive, we're not down very long. You're doing very purposeful thing. And in our case, it was just to go shoot lionfish. Maybe it's spear fishing in general. Usually it's done with a live boat, and that means we're not going to drop an anchor. We're not going to send a dive master down to tie off to a wreck. We position the boat over the top of our destination. We put the boat in neutral. The diver rolls off, heads to the bottom as quickly as possible so he doesn't drift away. He stays down to accomplish his task. For us, that is shooting lionfish, and then slowly ascend back to the surface, right? That's what we learned in ANDP and all of our classes is it's not the descent, it's the ascent that gets us into trouble. So if we can control our ascent, start building that ascent profile so it doesn't look like a V and it looks like a check mark or a swoosh, like the Nike swoosh, I call it, then you're going to be getting out of the water all day safe, hopefully unbent. So that's bouncing. Some people do really deep bouncing. Some people aren't watching or understand their dive profiles. And those guys, bounce diving is dangerous for some people. I try to make it as safe as possible, but the people that get bent traditionally are spear fishermen that are bouncing, right? They're going down, shooting a fish, and then come right back to the surface. That's risky at best. Don't do it. Bouncing is not safe, right? So if you can build some ascent curve, you'll make it a lot safer, but it's still, it's not the best.
Yep. So one thing that you have to be hard and fast on, like the ascent has to be perfect.
Every time.
Yep. So I know that normally when we dive, we owe our buddy. What's different about lionfish hunting and tournaments specifically?
So the spots that we're dropping on, they're not big. Chicken coops, pyramids. We don't want to hunt when you're shooting lionfish. Hunting takes time, especially if you're on a big reef, big wreck. The more you have to swim, it's just time killing. And most of the spots that we drop on, they are not big enough for 2 people, unfortunately. So we just do 1 person. They go down, they shoot the fish, and come right back to the boat, hopefully safely. That means if 1 person's in the water, 3 are on the boat. So 3 sets of eyes to watch for bubbles, watch for the diver to pop back up. If you got 2 people in the water, you got 2 sets of eyes watching. You got 3 people in the water, you got 1 person on the boat watching. So I like the effectiveness of having just 3 people watching for bubbles, getting people ready. There's a lot to do when you're lionfish hunting. You bring the zookeeper back full of lionfish. Somebody's got to dump the lionfish in a cooler, ice them. Somebody's helping getting the diver ready to go back again or gearing up himself to go down. So it's a lot of moving pieces in a 4-man team. And if you're aggressive about it, it can be super rewarding and super fast. You get a lot of lionfish, but it's usually bouncing 1 diver at a time. 1 driving, 1 helping the diver get ready, and 1 taking care of lionfish. Usually, that's the way we usually handle it, and most of the teams I talk to kind of do the same thing.
So I kind of want to explain to you guys on what lionfish hunting is, bounce diving, and tournament mentality specifically, because I know a lot of you guys are going to wonder why we're diving alone, why we're going down fast and shooting lionfish and making multiple dives during the day, even though a lot of open water curriculum says, don't make more than a couple dives in 1 day period. Where lionfish hunting, we're making anywhere between 10 to 15 dives in a day. And I just want to explain to you guys that I know a lot of you guys are going to say, well, that's dumb. You guys shouldn't do that. That's very dangerous. And I agree with you. It's very dangerous. And it can be extremely dangerous. But it is an individual choice to join a tournament, to join a team, knowing that you're going to solo dive and you're going to bounce dive. The important part is like safety. And you guys have seen the video that I'm making for my lionfish hunt. There's a clip that I have in there, and I will self-identify as being very stupid on this dive. I was 110 feet. I look at my watch, I look at my Shearwater, and I had 425 PSI left in my tank at 110 feet. And for whatever reason, and I purposely did it, but I stayed there and kept shooting fish. And there's more fish to be had. I was in a tournament. I had that mentality. I filmed my zookeeper, and by the time I started making my ascent, I was about 250 PSI. And as I was coming up to my safety stop, like at 250 PSI, you can feel that breath getting harder. And I'm on my safety stop. Luckily, I was at my safety stop where the breath was getting harder. If I was still at 110 feet, then I would have been in some serious trouble.
Yeah.
Even at my safety stop, I'm still in serious trouble breathing hard, because if I take that last breath, then that 1 atmosphere is the most dangerous atmosphere, and I'm going up to get my breath.
Yeah.
So very stupid, and it can get the best of you, especially when you're in a tournament. Like it's hard to. It's not hard. It's disciplined.
It's disciplined. You've got to turn the switch off and say, I'm there. It's time to go. Click.
Yep.
Stop looking. That's usually if you're spearfishing, that's when the big grouper shows up, or the cobia. It's like, nope, we can't do it. Yep. We all find ourselves in that bad spot where it's like, oh, but it's the perfect shot. It's the perfect fish. shit, is one really going to hurt me to shoot it at 500 psi? Yes. You gotta turn it off. And it's hard. It's hard for me as well. I've caught myself in similar situations, not, thinking, it's me. I can't make that mistake. I've been here 100 times. I try to always get back on the boat with 500 psi. Religiously.
Yep.
It's there for a reason, right?
There for a reason. It's not made to be broken.
Yeah. But just been a couple of times. One or two.
It's upsetting when it happens, especially like for me filming, because then I got to go back and watch, and I'm like, that was dumb. And I want to put it in my video, and my wife's going to see it, and she's gonna be like, seriously?
Why did you do that?
Yeah. Like, you're not going diving this weekend. It's exactly what she'll say too. Dang it.
Yeah.
Next weekend then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to explain moving up to a structure from the boat a little bit more in depth so that people understand that the difference for the divers that are used to tying into a wreck or dropping an anchor, or the non-divers that have absolutely no idea what we're talking about. Our structures here in the Gulf, the artificial reefs, sometimes are what we call pyramids, or they're big reef balls, or they're actual shipwrecks. So what we do is we have coordinates that are already plugged into the fish finder. We drive to those coordinates. And as soon as that structure shows up on the fish finder, but what will happen is you'll go from, if you're on at 90 feet of water, it would just be flat, and then you'll see a big spike, and that's where the structure's at. And as soon as you see that big spike, that's where the diver says, or the captain says, drop. The diver drops, goes down as fast as he can to that spot. Now, that part is pretty easy. As long as you get down fast enough, you typically find your mark.
Yeah.
The part that is not so easy is that when you're coming up, like we talked about slowly, if there's a current, if there's an underwater current, surface current, or a mid-water column current, you're moving away from that spot. That's what I'm getting at. So you'll never drop down on the site and pop right back up right on top of the site. Just doesn't happen. Right. Unless there's zero current and zero wind. Yep.
In the Gulf of America.
Yep, that's right. So when you come up, if you're at make math easy, if you're at 60 feet and you come up, then that's going to take you 1 minute to come up. And that 1 minute time, like you could have, depending on the current, you could already be 500 yards off of that site.
Quick.
Yep. And then you're stopping for a safety stop for an additional, 3 to 5 minutes, depending on your safety stop. So what we do in that point is that, predetermined location, typically for us diving at 120 feet, 60 feet is where I shoot my SMB. So I'll shoot my SMB at 60 feet. That goes to the surface. That tells the boat, hey, follow me. If the boat's paying attention, if it's not in the glint of the sun, typically the boat will follow you and you'll come up and pop up and then.
Yeah, it takes a team, right? To watch, look, point, there he is. And that was the problem with me getting lost, was it was choppy. It was like 2.5, maybe threes, occasional threes. And that put that white foam, a little bit of white waves, tips in the water.
It looks like bubbles.
It looks like bubbles. It's harder to track a diver. From the time I rolled off the boat till they moved back to the dive spot, I was almost already back up, so that I think ultimately was the problem, is they weren't expecting me to be back on the surface that quickly, and I was. And then when they drove to look for bubbles, there weren't any, because I was already gone. I was drifting off, so that's tough spot. There was no going back. It's not like, okay, let me just go back to where I was, because now I'm probably half mile away. There's no point. Can't fight the current.
Yeah.
At one point I thought, well, if I drop down to 20 feet and just take a compass bearing, I could maybe swim back. But, I had 700 PSI, so how far was I going to go against current? If I could get under the current, maybe I drive back or swim back 300 yards at best, and then I'm back up with an empty tank. So all these things race through your head really quick, and you've got to act on it quick. And I just decided they'll be back in a couple minutes. 6 hours later, still no So 5 hours and 57 minutes. So yeah, it was a good learning opportunity for everybody.
Yeah. So the entire 6 hours, just positive thoughts.
Yeah,
It was
never anything negative. The only negative thought I had in my mind was that I hope they didn't call my wife, or my wife doesn't know. You know, she was going to expect me home around 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And I was like, man, it's, 3 in the afternoon. I've got 4 hours to be back.
Yep.
Maybe she doesn't know. But when I got back on the boat that found me and they said, call your wife, then I knew I was in trouble. And that she had went through it, and she did. And my son as well. It was a hard day for them. And as much as I'm thankful for everybody that helped me out, if they had just hadn't called for help,
Yep.
I could have swam to shore and nobody would have been any wiser. They would have never known.
Story.
Yeah, another Barry story.
Yeah, that's right.
Cold beer in my hand, hitchhiking down Highway 98 to home.
That's right. That's where the sunburn came from.
Yeah, had to hitchhike home in my wetsuit in BC with fins under my arm.
That's right. We thought about that too as we were out there. I asked Eric and I was like, hey, like, do you think that they put this on social media already that there's a missing diver? And he said, oh yeah, absolutely. I was like, I might need to text my wife. So thankfully he had a Garmin In-Reach. So we had, the satellite communication through text. So even though we were way out without cell phone service, we were able to send a text through his phone, through his Garmin, to all of our spouses and be like, hey, missing diver, it's none of us on our boat. So if you're worried about us right now, don't worry about us.
Bonus for Garmin In-Reach, right? Send those warm fuzzies, because it did go out on social media. I thank everybody that was on social media for the huge following, for all the people spreading the word. That's how a lot of people that came out and searched learned of me missing, was through social media. That was huge. That the number of people that saw the social media posts and responded. Never a single, even to this day, I've never read a single negative thing. It's all been positive thoughts. We were thinking of you. We knew that if it was anybody, you were going to be fine. And I just felt calm. It was a relaxing swim in the Gulf of America. I had a Coast Guard interview a few days after I got home, kind of recovered. The Coast Guard called to just do a follow-up. They were really interested in finding out if the Coast Guard if the helicopter got close, or if I saw, I guess the Air Force came out and did a couple zigzags and then bailed out and left. A fighter jet was out there.
We saw the fighter jet.
You saw the fighter jet? I was like, oh no, I hope they're not missile testing or something.
Yeah, right.
And I was in that close to that exclusion zone where you can't go. So I was thinking the whole time that through the Coast Guard interview and everything else that, man, I might be in trouble with the Coast Guard. Well, after I talked to him for a little bit, he was really cool.
Right.
I wanted to thank all of them, all the Coast Guard, all the first responders, the military people, FWC, Fish and Wildlife. They all did a fantastic job in helping getting the word out. The Coast Guard guys, phenomenal, super supportive. There was some lessons learned, I think, for them as well, that the Coast Guard helicopter got that close and still couldn't see me. So hopefully they walk away with a little better understanding as well, because I'm a big proponent of, let's make it better or learn something so the next time it goes a little bit better than this time. And so we talked on the phone for quite a while. Both 2 or 3 different Coast Guard investigators that I've talked to in the last couple of weeks. Great guys. Love those guys to death. They drop everything on a dime, come out and look for you. That's nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Good that we have that. Especially
I know.
in our waters.
I was super, super nervous when they first showed up on scene, but I was like, oh no, they're out here looking for me. I know they are. But it's a huge relief when you see them.
Right.
You know, it's like, oh, they're looking.
Yep. Calvary's here.
Calvary's here.
Yep.
It's only a matter of time. That's why I kept telling myself, it's just a matter of time now. It seemed like it was a long time, and then ultimately wasn't found by them anyways. But it gives you that super warm feeling.
Yeah, somebody's looking.
Yeah, someone's looking.
Every once in a while, you hear those that wop, wop, wop,
Wop, wop, wop,
the
wop, wop, wop,
helicopter.
wop, 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 wop. Yeah, that's nice. I love that sound. Love them helicopter pilots.
So the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America, that we don't just have one current, and that also makes it pretty tough.
That's tough. One of my friends, Virgil Zetterland, he does something with ocean currents and stuff. That's his full-time gig, I guess. He does something. But he told me that there was like a circle current out there in the Gulf of America the weekend that I got lost off from Navarre. He basically described what happened to me. He's like, look, man, you did really good at the beginning of your trek towards land. You moved really close to shore. Then all of a sudden, this long shore current got you, hauled you way down the beach really quick. And I was from Navarre almost to the tower close to Mary Esther, where Mary Esther begins. There's a tower with a white ball on top. I call it the Q-tip. I went from Navarre Beach Pier to that in 30 minutes. It just was super fast. I was like, what happened? And then the bad thing was I started moving right back offshore. So all that work, all that swimming, felt like it was for naught, like I was starting over. And Virgil said the same thing. He's like, after you got to this point, it just pulled you straight back off. Like it was like a rip current kind of thing. It just pulled me straight offshore really quick. And ultimately, I think I ended up straight east of where I started by GPS coordinates, but 6 miles further to the east. But all that swimming, and he said if you had just stopped, you probably would have ended up, if you waited another hour, you would have ended up exactly where you started from, kind of thing. I was like, what?
Wow.
That just blows your mind. I mean, there's that much stuff. Yeah, I was going to try. And I would have tried again, at hour 7 and started over.
Gives
you something to do, Like, hey, let's see if I can get close enough and maybe I can bust out of this current the next time. If I'd started all over, I'm not the guy to give up. We'll start over and try again.
Yep. Right.
Maybe we'll do better this time.
So 6 hours, all that water around you, but not a sip to drink. How was that?
I was thirsty when I got back on the boat. I was really thirsty. I told Ryan, I said, Ryan Hawks on the boat, ER physician, I was like, man, I could just go for the coldest water you have. And he gave me a warm one.
Smart.
And I think, it was because he didn't want to put my body in shock, is what somebody said. So that warm water was not super, it's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
Could have gone for a cold beer after that long swim.
Right.
But a warm water was very welcome. It was fantastic to drink that. And then when we got back on the boat that I had left from, I did get a nice cold one. I had a cold sweet tea sitting in the cooler, drank that. Snacked on some snacks that we had brought. I had brought a sandwich and I ate the whole sandwich. Everything was bright, clear.
Did you ever find the octopus trolleys? Did you have some octopus trolleys to eat?
No, I do have some now. There's some right up behind you.
Nice.
So I do have some octopus back in stock.
Yeah.
But I did have some gummy worms, I'm pretty sure, on the boat. I usually carry a Snickers bar with me. Snickers satisfies. And I think I had a couple of sandwiches out there and one slightly cooler Circle K empanada or Cumberland's.
There you go.
Buy one, get one free day.
Oh yeah, so the next day. Once everything's calmed down, you've had your thoughts, you slept on it.
One of the guys from the boat had spent the night. He kind of ran ground cover for me. A whole bunch of friends had shown up at the house to support my wife. a couple of very close friends. My wife had sounded the alarm. My family was all flying in that morning. So really, I just wanted to sleep in. I felt like I had done leg day at the gym for 2 weeks straight. My legs were just shot. And my wife woke me up and said, "Hey, you got to go get your sister at the airport. She's arriving in 45 minutes. So I had to hurry up, jump in the shower, go pick up family. Then the next day, more family showed up. A lot of friends, a lot of phone calls, a lot of hugs. I took my brother-in-law to the Lionfish tournament. Thanked everybody there 100 times. Lots of hugs. A little bit of crying. Good, fantastic. I love the dive community. It's more important. The community and the friendships are more important than the diving is to me.
Right. Agree. Camaraderie is.
The camaraderie. It's bar none the best community of any sport I've ever been in. I love those people. And it was, again, a humbling day of people coming up and saying that they were so happy that I made it. Then everyone said, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you." And my one-liner is, "Man, it's good to be seen."
Yeah.
There's just something about...
Further than the truth than that.
I know. Yeah. I said a little piece. It's probably on social media at the Lionfish tournament. I could have probably talked about the whole thing that happened for a couple of hours, like tonight. However, Andy, when he handed me the mic, told me to keep it to 10 minutes. He knew. He knew.
Putting the cap on you.
Yeah, so I had thought, let me limit this down to like 30 minutes. So I kind of whittled it down to 30 minutes in my mind. And when he handed me the mic and said, "You got 10, I was like, "Oh no, now what do I say?" So I could have just thanked everybody for 10 minutes. And honestly, I felt like that's what I did. I tried to be very abbreviated. I think I watched the video the other night for the first time and it was like 6 minutes long, I think. So I think I did okay.
Yeah, that's good.
It was kind of like a flyover from the 10,000 feet view. We got to correct a whole bunch of people that think dolphins are great.
There's a lot of people that raise their hands.
Like, who here likes dolphins? Yeah. I see all these hands go up. I'm like, oh no. Mm-hmm. You guys got some learning to do. I haven't met the dolphins. The rapey dolphins. Yeah.
That's wild. It's
a good story.
It's a very good story.
Right. And I think the zest of life is storytelling. You know, I mean, through the generations, everything that happened was passed down to the next generation. Lessons learned through stories. Hopefully people take some lessons from this. Maybe learn a little bit. I know that probably there's a few new Garmin In-Reach out there. That's huge. So you sell one, maybe save one person. Sell 1,000, maybe save a bunch of people. Hopefully it never happens again. Once in 4,000 dives. Hopefully we won't get to 8,000. I think the odds have gotten pretty low. Yeah. So I told my wife, I was like, I'm thinking I'm not going to make it to 8,000 dives. 10,000's out of my reach, unless something crazy happens, I can start working on a liveaboard or something. Right. So 10,000 is kind of out of the question. So if it happened to me one more time in my life, that would probably be okay with those odds.
Just not 6 hours.
Just not 6 hours. I've done plenty of dive fishing, fishing liveaboards, and some of the guys that watch this, if you've ever been on the Ultimate Getaway that used to go down to the Dry Tortugas, we would drift for an hour and a half before getting picked up. The difference is then you had a stringer full of fish, and then the bumps weren't remorse. So, yeah, we've had some difficult days on the water, drifting, hour and a half, and when you're waving your hands frantically for the boat to come and get you, they do, because they know. So, so to be on a drift for an hour, no problem. 6 hours, not on my to-do list anymore. So I did the do on that, you know. Got the badge to prove it. Been there, done that. Got the badge to prove it.
Need to make a card, a certification card. Yeah, the drift, 6 hour drift.
Well, I started earlier, so when I was talking to the Coast Guard guy, thanking them again for everything that they do, I told the guy, I was like, am I the first diver to be lost in the Gulf of America and rescued?
Yeah.
He's like, you know, you might be. I was like, I want my plaque.
Yeah, that should go in the Guinness Book of Records. If it's the first, like you got to be in there, right?
First Gulf. I mean, the Gulf of America is not that old. So what is it? You know,
Only a couple months.
Couple months. Man, I gotta be up there. I mean, how many more?
Yeah.
They didn't know. Sector Mobile didn't know. So he's like, I think you are the first. They did 5 rescues on Friday when I was rescued. There was 4 other rescues in the Gulf of America. Now, none divers, none lost. You know, they're just, you know, Joe Schmoes fall off a boat or whatever. But yeah, that's we gotta figure that one out. I'd like a plaque hanging on my wall. It says first lost diver in the Gulf of America.
First lost and found.
Lost and found. Yeah.
So you get 2 plaques.
2 plaques. Yeah.
So the best part of a good story is the fact that you get to tell it.
I know. That is good. My wife would be able. I came home, my wife, all I wanted to do was sleep that night. I was so tired. And my wife, like 35 times, reached over, ran her fingers through my hair, squeezed me. I didn't get I just would fall asleep, and like 10 minutes later, she'd be waking me up, you know, squeezing me and just letting me know that she was there and double checking to make sure I was there. It was that first night, I woke up, I was just exhausted. I was like, just so tired. But a lot of it's because she wouldn't let me sleep. And then the next night, it got a little bit better. And the next night, you know, we were back to normal. You know, you stay on your side of the bed, I'll stay on my side of the bed. But it was a couple of days of recovery with family here and having to call and cancel insurance, life insurance policy. Hey, don't send that check. He's home.
Yeah.
Calling the funeral home. Yeah. Get the incinerator and put it back on ice because we're not going to be frying him this week. So it was a couple long days. It was scary for her. For me, I was just swimming in the Gulf of America, baptized in the Gulf of America, baby. Just out for a swim. Yeah. I stay in the water.
So we wanted to get this story out to you guys. Barry specifically wanted a chance to let you guys know exactly what happened because he's gotten a lot of requests for his story. And thankfully he reached out to me and asked me if I'd be willing to do it. And very humbling to be the one that was asked to do it. So I definitely appreciate it. And
can't think of a better person. I love your channel.
I appreciate it. I am floored that you're here. It's amazing.
I am super excited that you're here and took the time to come out here and hear my story.
Yeah. I always like your stories. Always some good stories. If you guys ever want some good stories, come diving with Barry.
Yeah.
And if you guys are looking into tech diving, I know I talked about it before. There's no better education you can get in diving than learning about the effects of pressure on your body and just different theories on diving. And I'd have no better instructor than Barry from Below 130 Diving to be the one that teaches you guys that stuff because he taught me it. And I'm glad he's here to teach next class.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's good to be seen.
That's right. Good to be seen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love every single one of you. The social media attention is what found me, okay? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Woo! All right.